Today's experience was sent to us by a brother. He was once a gay, but by God's grace, is not a dedicated believer. He dies and was shown a secret concerning the lifestyle he was living. Stay to the end to understand his experience. Looking back on my life, I see how much has changed. There was a time when I thought I had everything figured out. I was strong, independent, and sure of who I was. I believed in things I could see and fix with my own hands. But life has a way of surprising us. Sometimes, the things we believe are unshakable begin to shift, and we are left with questions we never thought we would ask. I grew up believing that hard work and self-reliance were the keys to life. I learned early that if something was broken, I had to fix it. That was just the way things were. For many years, I lived by those rules. I worked at the Willowbrook Community Center, helped others, and enjoyed the quiet rhythm of small-town life. But even in the comfort of routine, I sometimes felt something was missing, something I couldn't name. I had my own ideas about love and life, ideas that made sense to me. But all of that changed one evening with a simple fall from a ladder. What happened next was beyond anything I could have imagined. I was 8 years old when my father died. If my mother ever broke down, she never let me see it. She woke up early every morning, packed my lunch, and went to work like nothing had changed. But I knew it had. Without my father around, I had to learn things on my own. If my bike chain broke, I figured out how to fix it. If the fence needed mending, I found the right tools. It wasn't just about repairing things, it was about proving to myself that I could. Love was never something I took lightly. From the time I was young, I knew my heart worked a little differently than what was expected of me. While other girls daydreamed about boys, I found myself drawn to the warmth and kindness of women. It wasn't something I questioned at first. It felt natural, like the changing of the seasons or the steady rhythm of a familiar song. When I finally found the courage to say it out loud, to admit to myself and to others that I loved women, I felt a deep sense of freedom. It was as if I had been holding my breath for years and had finally let it go. I embraced my truth with both arms, stepping into a world that felt more honest, more real. There was something powerful about being with someone who saw me for exactly who I was. Love wasn't just about attraction, it was about connection, about sharing my thoughts and dreams, about feeling safe in someone else's presence. I lived those years with passion, believing that this was the truest expression of my heart. But even in the deepest moments of love, a quiet thought sometimes crept into my mind. It wasn't doubt, exactly, but a question I couldn't quite answer. Was there something more? Was love meant to be even bigger than what I had known? On the 2nd of November 2024, I had just finished another long day at the community center and was ready to settle in for the night when I noticed something. The porch light had gone dark. It wasn't a big deal, just a simple fix, something I had done countless times before. I took pride in keeping my little home in order. Every loose screw, every flickering bulb, every leaky faucet, I handled it all on my own. Independence had always been my way of life, and I liked it that way. Grabbing a fresh bulb from the drawer, I stepped outside into the cool night air. I walked to the back of the house, where my old wooden ladder leaned against the porch railing. I had climbed that ladder dozens of times, always steady, always sure of my footing. I placed my foot on the first rung, then the second, and began my usual routine. Unscrew the old bulb, replace it with the new one, twist it in place, and enjoy the satisfying glow of a job well done. But that night, something was different. Maybe I was tired, maybe I wasn't paying enough attention. As I stretched my arm toward the socket, I felt a slight wobble beneath me. It was small, just a tiny shift, but in that instant, everything changed. For a brief, weightless moment, time seemed to slow. I felt the rush of air against my skin, heard the sharp clang of metal hitting the ground. A searing, unbearable pain shot through my body as I crashed onto the hard wooden boards of my porch. The world blurred around me. My vision swam, and I couldn't tell if the ringing in my ears was real or just inside my head. I wanted to move, to get up, but my body refused to obey. Somewhere in the distance, I thought I heard a voice, my neighbor, calling out. But at that moment, everything around me faded, slipping away like water through my fingers. The last thing I remembered was the cool night air against my skin, the distant rustling of leaves, and then, nothing. Everything was quiet. Not the kind of quiet you hear late at night when the world sleeps, but a deeper, heavier silence, one that pressed against me like a thick fog. There was no pain, no fear, just stillness. I didn't know where I was. Or maybe I did, but I couldn't explain it. Then I saw it. My body, lying motionless on the wooden porch, my arm bent at an unnatural angle, my head resting awkwardly against the railing. Mr. Jacobs was there, kneeling beside me, his old hands shaking as he fumbled with his phone. His voice trembled as he shouted for help, but I couldn't hear the words, just the raw panic in his tone. I should have felt afraid. I should have wanted to scream, to reach out, to let him know I was still here. But I wasn't sure if I was still here. I was floating, separate, watching everything unfold like a scene from someone else's life. At first, there was only darkness. Not the kind you fear as a child, hiding under the covers from monsters in the closet. This was different. It wasn't cold or empty. It wasn't lonely. It just was. A deep, endless space where time had no meaning. I wasn't scared. If anything, I felt lighter than I ever had before, like all the weight of life had been lifted. I wasn't sure if I was moving or floating. Maybe I was just being. But something told me I wasn't lost. This darkness wasn't something to escape. It felt more like a pause, like the world had stopped just for me. And then I felt it. A presence, vast, endless, yet close, as if it had been with me all along. It didn't speak, not in words, but I understood. It knew me. Every thought, every mistake, every moment of joy, every hidden sorrow. And yet, there was no judgment. Only love. Pure, unshaken, overwhelming love. As I stood in the presence of Jesus, surrounded by the radiant glow of his divine love, I felt a warmth that reached beyond my physical being. His presence was unlike anything I had ever known, pure, unwavering, and filled with a love deeper than I had ever imagined. Yet within that love, there was also truth, a truth that pierced through every assumption I had ever made about my own heart, my desires, and what it truly meant to love. He revealed to me that love, in its purest form, was not meant to be shaped by human desires alone, nor distorted to fit the longings of the flesh. He showed me how the world had strayed, twisting the sacred bond of love into something self-serving, something that moved away from the divine order that God had established from the beginning. He made me see that in my past, I had sought love in ways that seemed fulfilling at the time, yet they were only shadows of the true love that God intended. With a sorrow that was not filled with anger but rather with deep longing, he revealed to me how humanity had turned away from the divine design of love and replaced it with disorder. He made me understand that the way I had once loved, though it felt real and passionate, was not the way he had created love to be. The desires that had once shaped my identity were not the desires that came from God, but rather from a world that had lost sight of its creator. He revealed that this was not just about me, but about countless souls who had chosen a path that did not align with his divine will. He showed me how many had fallen into the same deception, seeking fulfillment in relationships that could never bring the true joy and wholeness that only God's love could provide. He revealed that the world had embraced its own definition of love, one that satisfied temporary cravings but left the soul empty, disconnected from its true purpose. There was sadness in his eyes as he made me understand that this was not how it was meant to be. And then, with a weight that pressed upon my spirit, he revealed the consequence of rejecting the truth. He made me see that those who continued in these ways, refusing to turn back, would find themselves separated from him for eternity. He revealed the reality of hell, not as a place of myth or exaggeration, but as a true and terrifying end for those who chose to live outside his will. It was not just a place of punishment, but a place of complete separation from his love, where the soul would never again experience the warmth of his presence. I saw glimpses of those who had walked this path before, those who had refused to turn back. They were lost in endless torment, crying out but unable to escape the weight of their choices. He revealed to me that this was not what he desired for anyone. His love was not about condemnation, but about redemption. He did not wish to see even one soul lost, but he would not force anyone to choose him. Love had to be accepted freely, and so did the truth. Then, with a voice that echoed through every part of me, he revealed hope. He showed me that his love was still available to all who would turn back to him. No matter how far they had gone, no matter how deeply they had embraced the world's way of love, he was still ready to forgive. He revealed that repentance was the key, not just regret, but a true turning away from what was not of him. He wanted those who engaged in these practices to come to him, to believe in him, to let go of their old ways and step into the fullness of his love. He made me see that love, true love, was greater than anything I had ever known. It was not just about feeling or passion, but about purpose, about connection to the divine. It was a love that healed, that restored, that brought wholeness instead of brokenness. He revealed that those who truly love him will follow his ways, even when it means letting go of what they once believed was right. As I stood before him, overwhelmed by the weight of this truth, I felt his love wrap around me like a cleansing fire. I knew then that I could not hold on to my past. I could not cling to what I had once thought defined me. He was calling me to something greater, to a love that was beyond what I had ever known. And as the light around me began to fade, as I felt the pull back to my earthly body, he left me with a final revelation. I must tell them. Those who are lost, those who are searching, those who are trapped in the deception of the world. I must tell them that there is a way back, that love is greater, that he is waiting, ready to forgive, ready to restore, ready to bring them into the fullness of the love they were created for. Just as I felt completely at peace in that vast, endless love, something began to shift. It was like being caught in a gentle but unrelenting current, pulling me backward, away from the light, away from the presence that had embraced me so fully. I didn't want to leave. I wasn't afraid, but I felt a deep longing to stay. The brilliance around me began to dim, until it was no longer within reach. I tried to speak, but my throat was raw, my body weak. I turned my head slightly and saw my mother, her eyes red with worry and exhaustion. When she saw me stir, she gasped, covering her mouth with trembling fingers. "You're awake," she whispered, her voice breaking. I had returned. Everything felt different. The air, the sounds, even my own body, it all felt heavier, denser, as if I had been made of light and now carried something far too solid, too limiting. I had seen what lay beyond, felt a love so vast it had no boundaries. And yet, here I was again, in a world that suddenly felt so small, so constrained by time, pain, and expectations. But as I lay there, blinking away the exhaustion, I knew I had not come back empty. I carried something with me, an understanding, a truth, a love that could never be erased. All right, friends. This brings us to the end of today's experience. Kindly like and share this video with your friends and families. Kindly subscribe to our channel and turn on your notification bell icon to be the first to get updated anytime we upload a new experience sent to us. Remain blessed.